Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Everything Homeschooling with me, your host, Gail Hanlon. I'm a homeschooling parent, unschooling, all those other types of alternative education for over 30 years, and today we're talking about a really big topic that a lot of people need help with, and you're here. So I hope you'll join us, be part of our part of the comments, be on camera if you like. If you would like to share your situation and have us, maybe throw some things out there that might help, we are happy to have you. And welcome to Everything Homeschooling. Hello. Oh, well, that's interesting. We don't have any guests to share with you right now, but let's see if we can get to the things that we do want to talk about. So, today, as I said, we're talking about something very challenging for a lot of homeschooling families, and that is when you're either trying to get custody or in a divorce or custody dispute. Um, And it also applies, a lot of the things we're going to be talking about apply to how you would approach other people that maybe disapprove or disagree or challenge you, quiz your kids because they just don't get it. They don't understand homeschooling. And that's the primary thing that we have to remember. So let's start right at the beginning, because this is super important that we understand all of the factors that are involved in this challenging situation. And if you're not in a custody battle or a divorce or anything, please stay with us and add your voice to our comments, because it is important that the people who are going through this know that they have our support and our help and our ear, because sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you. I have to admit, I have been through custody battles twice. Once with a former spouse, and once with the father of my youngest daughter, who is now 22, and she was 6 at the time. So we had lots and lots of experience with courts and judges and lawyers and people asking questions, drilling you to make sure that you know what you're talking about, and questioning your every step. And when we're just starting out, it can be really, really hard because we're just sometimes just doing what we know to be right. We know it's right for our kids. We know we can't put them back in school. What do we do? And how do we, in our own insecurities and possibly doubting ourselves as well, because we know what it's been like to be doubted by everybody as well. Where do we get that confidence? Where do we get that support? And one place is right here, because I'm with you. And I'll tell you a brief bit about my backstory. My oldest daughter, I had joint shared custody with her dad. And actually, we got the judge to court order homeschooling. So she had 7 nights with me and 7 nights with him. And on his 7 nights, he had to bring her to me because of the court order for home education Monday through Friday. So every day from 9 to 4, he would bring her over to me. And so that was a brilliant thing that happened. And I'm happy to share the details of that with other people as we go through this. Or later on, please message me. And the link, if you would like to be on the show, is in the description of the show, wherever you're watching it, on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. There's 3 different pages that it's going to live on Facebook: my own personal page, my school page, and my education page. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you need to reach out. I'm also creating a group on Signal for those people who need to connect with other parents who are going through the same situations and need somebody to talk to that understands the challenges. So please don't hesitate to contact me, and we'll get you in touch with somebody that can help and that can at least understand what you're going through. So my second child, I did get full custody of, and that was a different challenge in its own case. But suffice it to say, it was narcissistic abuse, and basically he got fired by his lawyer, 3 lawyers actually, that refused to work with him. And the judge ripped a strip off of him when he tried to represent himself. So there's all sorts of things we can talk about here. So right now, let's go on to the first step, is what are the factors involved in custody and disputes. So the first one, I'm trying a new thing here, so hopefully I get it all down, a little more coordinated. I'm using something called Stream Deck. So the custody factor itself. So it is not a happy thing when parents split up and when they go for divorce. It is, a lot of children are damaged or affected very strongly by it, and feel that they lose their sense of being, their sense of belonging in that situation. So when a family goes to court, there's already been a lot of emotional stuff going on. And depending on how the parents feel, there are going to be a lot of challenges with different opinions, and the children feeling like they're in the middle. And we want to try to avoid as much of that falling on the child, like the arguments between the parents, and it happens so quickly. Asking your child what they did with the other parent, and so many other things. So here, last year in Ontario, the language changed from sole custody, joint custody, that kind of thing, or joint shared, to the parent with decision-making responsibility versus the parent who has visitation. So now the terminology is a little bit different, so we should always be knowledgeable about that terminology. You can look it up. The parent with decision-making responsibility has the right to all the decisions, unless there's something different written in your court papers. So that means being able to put them in or take them out of school. Make sure that in your court documents, if you're going for parental decision making, that you have that written in, that you have the right to change the school depending on what you feel is best for the child. You may not want to have the other parent consulting, because if you can't get along and if you have very diverse views, it's not going to work very well, and it will take time. And saying, if the other person disagrees with that, you'll go back to court, and through COVID, it's been ridiculous with delays, and things don't get settled fast. And even when extreme issues happen, like a parent doesn't return a child after a visit, unless you've got it in the documentation of the court order that they have the police have the authority to remove the child and bring the child back, if the police won't do it. They will say, okay, I can't enforce that unless it's in the court order. So one thing you really want to remember is that if you have a spouse who may not return the child when they're supposed to, make sure it's in your court documents that the police have enforcement rights. So that's a huge one that you need to know. The other thing is for medical. Now, I mean, if you are okay with notifying the former spouse, have that put in the court order that you can do that. Or if you don't want that, if you everything has to be in writing, because I know too many people who think that it automatically covers something when it doesn't, like the visitation times. When a parent maybe takes a child out of the province or out of the country, and if they don't have your permission to do that, what is your next step? You have to think ahead, and we all want to think the best, but cover all the bases of what could go wrong in order to just cover your be prepared. It's like a Girl Guide thing, be prepared. Because even if that doesn't happen with your former spouse, it could. I mean, they could be influenced by a new relationship, or, I've had that happen to me. My former husband's spouse was made things very challenging, and really did emotionally damage my older daughter. So I speak from experience here. While I never thought my ex-husband would do the things that he did, he was influenced by his new wife, and so things were very, very hard. So in joint cases, if you are able to work together, it's still very important to have everything written down. And part of what I want to say about, and this is not legal advice, I have to say that. My disclaimer I should have had at the beginning. This is not legal advice. It is experience and knowledge that I have from having lots to do with the process. So it is not legal advice. Please seek legal advice. But before you do that, Research the lawyer. Find out if they have experience in education law, because we're going to be getting into that next. So I'm just going to touch on one more thing with the custody factor. Is that it's super important to understand the dynamics of everybody involved. The lawyers may not understand your situation, your point of view. They won't necessarily understand his, but most lawyers and courts and judges understand the school system perfectly well. What they're not generally educated in is alternatives. And so we come to the education factor. So the quality of education is disputed by everybody. Everybody thinks their school was better than somebody else's school, or the schools out west are better than the schools out east, or, there's always comparing. When you're thinking about alternative education or home education, what you really need to do is be informed. Be informed about your legal rights, which is sometimes hard to find because, like I said, not every lawyer understands your legal rights under the Education Act, because it's not necessarily parenting rights, it's education rights. So if you happen to be the parent with decision-making responsibility, then when you present yourself to a lawyer or a court, you need to have that confidence that you know what you are doing, because they will have all the information about the public education system, but they generally know very little about the alternatives. And so in this situation, you have to be the expert to provide the information to the lawyers and the judges and the courts. So that was what I did with my first, when I was going for we got joint shared custody, which I wish I had had more money to get a better lawyer and more self-confidence, because I was totally immersed in anxiety and stress from the whole process. I couldn't step back and look at it. But what I did do was I provided both my lawyer and the court with stacks of documentation on how home education is best, in my opinion. And so there were tons of statistics, tons of scientific studies, and I was able to document the reasons why I felt this method was best for my daughter. And my former husband said, I want her tested. So the court ordered my 7-year-old daughter to be tested educationally. When children learn what they love and are supported in a strength-based way, they learn more, faster, and retain it longer and understand it better. So my daughter had always been home educated. She loved the flashcards when she was little. I had a home daycare. We did lots of games. We played with lots of educational toys and puzzles, and we talked a lot. So she had a lot of engagement from older kids and other adults, because we went everywhere. We went on the bus. We went to the library. She went horseback riding. We did everything. So by the time she was 2, she knew all her alphabet letters. Now, I'm not saying your child needs to do this, because some kids are academically inclined and some aren't, and they're okay. If they're not academically inclined, that is not a problem. There is lots of documentation to say that the average boy, let's say, reads or becomes a good reader or reads at between 8 and 11 years old. So girls might read a little sooner. but we don't accommodate those types of things in schools. So with this, she was tested at 7 years old, and she came out with a grade 11 reading and comprehension level and a grade 6 spelling and grammar level. And there's a great example of the diversity of how grade levels don't support and don't help our children learn. But also it showed the court that her strength-based home education from birth had given her that. She was not a genius. She was able to do what she wanted, when she wanted, how she wanted. And so that meant that she learned how to learn and not just stuff. So there was stuff that would have been on the curriculum for grade 2 that she never did because it wasn't important to us. It wasn't relevant to us. But what she did do, when you look at what they do enjoy, they are able to learn in a very different way. And so being able to show that to the court made the judge say, yeah, homeschooling's working for her, court-ordered homeschooling. So my daughter was, my ex-husband had to bring our daughter to me every day, Monday to Friday, even on his weeks. All right, there's so much more to go into. I could do a show on each one of these points, but we don't have that much time. And so I'm going to go through to the next one, the socialization factor. Who hasn't heard, what about socialization, right? Ask whoever's asking, what does that mean to you? Because what socialization means to one person is not the same as what it means to another. Being able to show the court that my daughter was socially adept in all situations, going up at 5 years old, being able to go up to the counter and pay for her own drinks and Tim Hortons order, being able to go to the library and interact with the librarians, being able to have her own business. At 6 years old, she was having her own business. We bought rolls of stickers from Smile Makers, and she took them in a little briefcase on the bus everywhere we went, and she would offer people stickers, and if they wanted to buy stickers for 25 cents each. I had 1,000 stickers in a roll that cost me $5.95, and she sold them each for 25 cents each. She made a bundle, and she was really, really good. So being able to interact with other people from all walks of life. I even we're going to go into this a little later, so I'm going to switch that to that. But the socialization factor is why. Do they participate in outside sports? If kids go to dance classes or soccer games, or playing soccer on a soccer team, or karate or whatever, that's all part of their socialization. And we shouldn't narrow the socialization view to just homeschool or just public schools, because one of the statements that I always said was, I don't want my children over socialized to their own peer group and under socialized to the rest of the world. So important points on socialization. So many preconceived notions on what socialization is. Make sure to ask, how do you define socialization? Because until you know that, you're going to be, just banging your head against a wall trying to figure out how to defend yourself. And you should not be defending yourself. You should be educating whoever it is who is asking you these questions, because you do have the knowledge. You do know what you want to do, what you need to do for your child. So, oh my gosh, time goes so fast. Here's the next factor, the parental strife factor. Is your former spouse only making a fuss because they're narcissistic or gaslighting and want to make life for you? Are they just doing it to hurt you? Because that is a case. And you can't fight that in logic because there is no logic for that. And a lot of families, if they're able to do things and sort things out before they go to court, or preventing them from going to court, if they'll do mediation, if you have the opportunity to communicate effectively with your ex or with your spouse, then generally speaking, those people don't end up in court for custody or have the dispute at all. And judges and courts and lawyers know this. They know that generally the only people who are actually going to be coming to court are the ones that aren't able to come to agreements with their ex-spouse. So they have to be aware of the sometimes very difficult issues of abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and trauma to the child. So the parental strife factor is huge, and you need to be able to address how you're going to minimize that, if not, hopefully, eliminate it. There's the issues that kids have in schools when their parents are fighting, and how do you homeschool when there's a lot of negativity and trauma that has happened. It's definitely something that is critical to be conscious of. So then the last one here, I know we're running short on time, but the last one is the religion factor. So sometimes parents will disagree on religious basis. One parent might be more spiritual in their thoughts than the other, and so then you really need to be able to have the information that shows why what you're doing is of value and not damaging. And I know this from experience that my faith was very different to that of the exes that I was going to court with. And one of them even told the court that I should not be allowed to read a Bible storybook to my daughter. Well, of course, the judge realized that was ridiculous. The judges are not stupid. They just might not have all the information. And so it's up to us to provide them with information on how these things can be beneficial. And I think what everybody's watching for in the system is, are we extremist about something? Well, in some cases, yeah, it may seem that way, especially to somebody who doesn't believe. So we have to be very, careful. But if you have a good resources, and if you need help with resources, please, again, don't hesitate to connect with me, because these are the main 5 factors. And what we have the opportunity to do in these struggles that we're faced with, and I'm just gonna to finish up here really quickly, is that we have the privilege of educating the courts, the lawyers, the judges, and other people who may disagree with us. You need to keep good strong hold on your confidence. Don't let those doubts in. Share with other people to find backup information so that you can truly help them understand that you know what you're talking about. You know you're doing the best thing for your child. And that way, it's kind of hard to argue with logic. I hope that's helped. Remember, this is not legal advice, but I am happy to direct people to good lawyers are good places that do have some information that can help you in your struggles. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. We are done for today. I'm so sad. I love these times that we get together to chat. So I'm looking forward to all your comments in the chat bar. And take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye for now.